The prisoner, Jace Harrow, opened his eyes to darkness. The air was cold, heavy, and smelled like metal. A sharp pain ran through his side. He tried to move, but his arms were chained to the wall. His legs, too. He could barely sit up. The floor beneath him felt like smooth steel, and the walls around him pulsed with a soft blue light. It wasn't Earth. It wasn't home. It was a Kraylan prison ship. He was a prisoner of war. Memories of the last battle came rushing back. Jace had been leading a rescue mission near the moons of Juno when their ship was ambushed. The Kraylan came fast like ghosts in the dark. Their lasers tore through the hull. His crew fought hard, but it wasn't enough. He remembered the explosion, the pressure, the silence. Then nothing. He wasn't supposed to survive. A loud buzz echoed through the cell. A door opened. Light flooded in. Jace squinted as tall, insect-like soldiers marched inside. They had long arms, clawed hands, and silver armor that looked alive. Two of them dragged him to his feet. He stood on shaking legs, refusing to show weakness. No matter how broken he felt, he wouldn't give them the satisfaction. They led him down a narrow hallway lined with glowing tubes. Inside each one was a prisoner, some human, some alien. All looked empty, lifeless. Jace wondered how long he would last. They brought him into a chamber lit by soft purple lights. The air smelled different here, like flowers and fire. Strange, patterns covered the floor. At the far end, on a raised throne, sat a figure unlike the others. She was tall, elegant, and still. Her skin shimmered like obsidian. She wore a dark cloak that trailed onto the floor. Her eyes were gold and sharp, like they could see straight into his soul. This was Queen Zarentha, ruler of the Kraylan Empire. Jace had heard stories about her. Some called her a monster, others a genius. She had led the Kraylan in dozens of wars, conquered 6 star systems, and never lost a battle. It was said she never took prisoners herself. So why was he here? The guards pushed him forward and left. Jace stood in silence, blood dried on his face, his body weak, his will still unbroken. He looked the queen in the eye. "If you're here to kill me," he said, "get it over with." The queen tilted her head, almost amused. "You think too simply, Captain Harrow." Her voice was soft, deep, and calm. It echoed slightly, like it came from the air itself. "Then why am I alive?" Jace asked. She rose from her throne and slowly walked toward him. Her steps made no sound. She moved like a shadow with purpose. "Because you are useful." Jace narrowed his eyes. "As a hostage?" "No," she said. "As a partner." He blinked. "What?" Zarentha circled him slowly, studying his body, his scars, his face. "Earth is close to destruction. Your leaders don't know it yet, but soon they will. My empire voted for total elimination. No more humans, no more war, just silence." Jace's chest tightened. "So this is your way of saying goodbye?" "No," she replied. "This is your chance to stop it." He didn't understand. His mind spun. "What are you saying?" The queen stood in front of him now, close enough that he could see a mark on her neck, some kind of ancient symbol glowing faintly. Her eyes locked with his. "I offer you a deal," she said. "One life for many. Be mine. For one Kraylan cycle. Serve as my consort. If you accept, I will stop the attack. Earth will be spared." The room went silent. Jace's heart pounded. "You're insane." "Perhaps," she said. "But the offer is real." He stepped back, confused and angry. "You want me to be some kind of royal pet?" "No, not a pet, not a slave. Something more. You will walk beside me, rule beside me, live beside me." Jace shook his head. "And if I refuse?" The queen didn't blink. "Then I burn your world, clean and fast." Jace stared at her, searching her face for any hint of a lie. But all he saw was fire. Quiet, steady fire. She turned her back to him. "You have 3 days to decide. You will be fed, cleaned, healed, but guarded. I suggest you think carefully." The guards returned. They grabbed him and pulled him away. As the door shut behind him, Jace felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Not fear, not anger, curiosity. Why him? Why now? And what did this alien queen really want? The queen's deal. Jace didn't sleep that night. He lay on the cold, smooth bed of his new cell, staring at the ceiling as the soft blue lights above pulsed like a heartbeat. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, Queen Zarentha with her golden eyes and terrifying calm. Her words echoed through his mind, louder than the silence around him. Be mine, for one Kraylan cycle. Serve as my consort. The offer felt like a trick, a cruel joke wrapped in velvet. He had been ready to die as a soldier, but this was something else. It wasn't surrender. It wasn't survival. It was something in between, a line he wasn't sure he could cross. When food arrived, it wasn't the sludge they had fed him before. This meal was warm and strangely pleasant, alien fruits that glowed faintly and bread with the texture of clouds. It wasn't much, but it was care. It was intention. They were treating him differently now, like he mattered. After eating, he paced his cell, testing the walls, checking for weakness. He needed to think like a soldier even now. But no matter how hard he tried to plan an escape, part of his mind kept returning to her eyes. There was something hidden behind them. Power. Yes. But also pain. He could sense it. On the second day, a new figure entered his cell. Not a guard, not a soldier, a Kraylan priest. He was old, with silver scales and robes that floated behind him like smoke. He spoke in perfect English, though his accent twisted the words slightly. You have been chosen, the priest said. The queen honors you. Few outsiders have been offered her bond. None have survived it. So I'm special, Jace said dryly. The priest nodded. You are. Jace frowned. Why? Because you're human. Because you're strong. Because the queen believes you are different. The priest studied him for a moment longer, then handed him a crystal disc. Learn our ways. Know what it means to walk beside her. Jace took the disc. It glowed in his hand. Information poured into his mind. Images, language, rituals. He saw visions of Kraylan history, their battles, their tragedies. He saw the rise of Queen Zarentha, how she seized the throne after her mother's death, how she survived 10 assassination attempts, how she ruled through fear and fire, but also how she wept alone, unseen after each war. Jace dropped the disc. His head throbbed. His breath came fast. For a moment, he wasn't sure who he was anymore. On the third day, they brought him back to the throne chamber. This time, he wasn't dragged. He was escorted. With respect. Zarentha sat on her throne again, but something was different. She wasn't wearing her crown. Her shoulders looked tense. Her eyes were softer. Jace stood before her, still bruised, still uncertain. You've returned, she said. I had no choice, he replied. She tilted her head. You had every choice, and you still do. He stepped forward. You want a consort. Why me? Zarentha rose from her seat and approached him. Because my empire is dying, she said, and I need something new to save it. He waited. She continued. Our bloodline is failing. Centuries of war have weakened us. Kraylan queens were once born with the ability to renew the genetic strength of their kind. Now that trait is fading. I am the last with the gift. But it is damaged. She paused. Her eyes didn't leave his. A human's essence. Your species still holds a pure code. You're not corrupted by centuries of engineered breeding. You are unpredictable, chaotic, fertile. Jace's jaw clenched. So this is about breeding? This is about survival, she said. For both our kinds. He turned away, trying to hide his anger. You say it like it's noble, but you're asking me to give up everything, my life, my world, for you. No, she said softly. I'm offering you something rare. A chance to end this war without another drop of blood. He looked back at her. What if I say yes? He asked. Then you become part of something bigger than either of us. And if I say no? She didn't blink. Then Earth dies. The silence between them felt endless. Jace finally stepped forward, close enough to see the flicker of fear behind her golden eyes. She was strong, but she was afraid. Not of him, of the future. I want one thing, he said. Zarentha raised an eyebrow. Name it. Truth, Jace replied. No more lies. If I do this, I want to know everything. Why me? What's coming? And what you're really afraid of. The queen stared at him for a long time. Then slowly she nodded. Agreed. She raised her hand. A silver band formed in the air, spinning like liquid light. She placed it on his wrist. You have accepted the first bond, she said. You are now bound to the throne. Our deal begins. As the guards bowed and the room darkened, Jace felt the band tighten on his skin. Something ancient stirred in his veins. He had made his choice, but he had no idea what it would cost. A human in the royal court, the Kralin Palace was not built, it was grown. Jace Harrow learned that on the day he was escorted through its towering halls, the silver band still warm on his wrist. The floors pulsed beneath his feet, like veins, in a living creature. The walls shifted ever so slightly, adjusting to temperature, mood, and rank. Light poured from roots that climbed the ceilings like vines, giving the whole place an eerie, dreamlike glow. Every step he took felt watched, judged, remembered. It wasn't just a palace. It was a living archive, a thinking fortress. And now, it was his home. The queen did not hide him. Zarentha introduced Jace to the court at a gathering known as the Ceremony of Shadows, a midnight event where nobility dressed in robes that reflected their inner essence. Warriors shimmered in reds and blacks, diplomats in soft blues, and scholars wore translucent white. Jace had no robe, no history, no essence, so they clothed him in a simple black tunic and placed him beside the queen like a statue. When she announced him as her bound consort, the chamber fell into complete silence, and then came the whispers. Some Kralin laughed quietly, others narrowed their eyes in disgust, a few stormed out. Jace could feel the hatred in the air. This was a sacred role, one not meant for outsiders. He was a parasite in their eyes, a warm-blooded mistake walking freely among them. But Queen Zarentha held her chin high. She didn't flinch, neither did Jace. He didn't smile or bow. He simply stared back at them, one scarred face among a sea of shimmering elites. Let them judge me, he thought. I've fought worse monsters than this room. Days passed, and the palace became both a prison and a puzzle. Jace was free to roam, but only under watch. Guards followed him at a distance, silent, masked, and loyal to the queen. He learned their language quickly, thanks to the memory crystal the priest had given him. Soon he could understand the whispers in the corridors. They called him Blood Pet, Skinwalker, Queen Shame. And yet, some of the lower caste looked at him with curiosity. One of the kitchen staff even handed him a fruit one night and bowed slightly. You are brave, she whispered before running off. It was the first kind gesture he had received since stepping onto the Kralin world. But the court was not just cold, it was deadly. On the 5th night of his residence, an assassin tried to poison his drink at a royal feast. Jace noticed the strange ripple in the liquid just in time. Instead of causing a scene, he calmly handed the goblet to a suspicious noble who had been eyeing him all night. The noble drank it, and collapsed within seconds. Zarentha didn't blink. Remove him, she said softly, and guards dragged the corpse away like it was nothing more than spilled wine. That night, Jace confronted her. How many more times will they try to kill me? He asked. Until they fear you, she answered, and how long will that take? She stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on his chest. That depends on you. Zarentha began to teach him, not with words, but with experience. She brought him to strategy meetings where generals discussed planetary control and troop movements like pieces in a game. She took him to the archives, where scrolls older than Earth's oldest ruins spoke of ancient wars between species long forgotten. She sat beside him during disputes between noble houses, letting him see the inner rot of Kraylan politics. Jace listened, learned, and spoke only when he had something valuable to say. It didn't take long for them to notice. At one such council meeting, a noble mocked Jace's understanding of Kraylan military history. Jace calmly quoted a battle maneuver from a 300-year-old campaign and followed up by exposing a flaw in the noble's current planetary defense plans. The room fell silent. Zarentha didn't praise him. She didn't need to. The silence was its own reward. That day the whispers changed. They still hated him, but now they also feared him. One night, as he wandered through a section of the palace garden made of glowing crystal trees, Jace came upon Zarentha alone. She was kneeling, her hand pressed to a small statue hidden behind a cluster of stone petals. She didn't hear him approach. He stood back, listening. "They don't see what I see," she whispered. "But I cannot force them to change. I can only give them something new to believe in." Jace didn't speak. He didn't need to. When she rose and noticed him, she didn't act surprised. She simply said, "I was once like you, young, angry, ready to fight everything." He stepped beside her. "What changed?" "I lost too much," she replied. "Then I learned that ruling is not about control. It's about what you leave behind." He looked at her. "And what do you want to leave behind?" Zarentha turned to him. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. "A future." Jace didn't answer. But in that moment, something shifted between them. Not love. Not yet. But understanding. And from understanding, something more dangerous could grow. Secrets of the Kraylan palace was full of secrets, and Jace Harrow was learning how to find them. Each day brought new rooms, hidden doors, and strange whispers behind shimmering curtains. The deeper he explored, the more he realized that the Kraylan Empire was built on silence. Layers upon layers of silence, buried beneath gold and blood. The nobles wore pride like armor, but underneath, many of them feared their queen more than they respected her. And they feared Jace even more, not because of his strength, but because they didn't understand why he was still alive. Jace knew how to read fear. He'd seen it on battlefields, in the eyes of dying soldiers, and in the haunted stares of refugees. He saw it now in the way the guards avoided his gaze, how the palace advisors spoke to him only through the queen, and how the corridors emptied when he walked too far from where he was expected. But it wasn't until he discovered the forgotten chamber beneath the eastern wing that everything began to change. It started with a flicker, a small, unnatural distortion in the air behind a golden tapestry. Jace reached out, pushed past the fabric, and found a thin crack in the wall hidden in shadow. It looked like a dead end, but when he pressed his hand to it, the wall opened with a soft click, revealing a narrow tunnel that led downward into darkness. He followed it. The tunnel was tight and filled with a soft, humming energy. The walls glowed faintly, reacting to his presence. As he descended, the air grew colder, older. Dust clung to his skin. Finally, the tunnel ended at a chamber sealed by a large, circular door, marked with glowing Kraylan runes. Runes he could now understand, thanks to the memory crystal. The translation burned in his mind. Blood must recognize blood. Hesitating, Jace touched the band on his wrist. It warmed instantly. The door opened. The chamber inside looked nothing like the rest of the palace. It was carved from black stone, ancient and untouched by time. In the center stood a crystal pedestal, holding a single object, a metal sphere covered in intricate designs. Around it, holographic displays flickered to life as Jace stepped forward, showing images of early Kraylan history. Then something else. Humans, not modern humans. Primitive ones, cave dwellers, early tribes. In the projections, Kraylan scientists approached the humans with reverence. Not as conquerors, but as observers, caretakers, partners. Some of the Kraylan even took human form using biological suits, living among them. Jace's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just history, it was a revelation. The Kraylan hadn't just discovered Earth. They had shaped it, guided it, and then left. But why? He scanned through the entries, reading, faster now. Thousands of years ago, a Kraylan queen named Elashera had declared Earth too unstable for alliance, citing human emotions as dangerous and chaotic. The project had been shut down. But one line stood out above the rest. The genetic key may one day unlock what our own blood has forgotten. If awakened, it could save us, or destroy us. Jace staggered back. He wasn't here just because he was a soldier, not because he had survived the battle. He was here because something in his bloodline, his very DNA, was tied to an ancient Kraylan experiment. He was a key, a bridge between species, maybe even a cure. He left the chamber in silence, his mind racing. That night, when he saw Zarentha, again he couldn't hide what he knew. They stood alone in the royal garden beneath a sky filled with twin moons. "You lied to me," he said. The queen didn't move. "What have you seen? Your people didn't just find Earth. They made it. You've been watching us for thousands of years, and you've been hiding it." Zarentha turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "I didn't lie. I withheld. There is a difference." "Not to me," he replied. "Why am I here, Zarentha? Really?" She walked toward him slowly, her voice low. "Because the Kraylan are dying. Our blood grows thinner each generation. We have lost what once made us strong. Balance, emotion, connection. Your kind still has it. Chaotic, yes, but pure, powerful." Jay stared at her. "You wanted to use me," she nodded. "At first, yes. And now?" Zarentha looked away. Her voice dropped even lower. "Now, I'm not sure." He didn't expect that answer. "You want to save your people," he said. "But what if it costs me everything?" She met his eyes. "Then I will carry that burden. Alone." The silence between them was heavy. A queen and a soldier, an empire, and a planet. Their fates hanging on a fragile thread. Before he could speak again, Zarentha whispered, "There's something else. Something you haven't seen yet. A truth deeper than history." "Then show me," Jace said. Zarentha stepped closer. She reached for his wrist and placed her hand over the silver band. It glowed brighter, then dimmed. "I will show you," she said. "But once you see it, there's no going back." Jace nodded. "I'm ready." But deep inside he wondered, was anyone ever truly ready to uncover the truth behind their entire existence? The rebellion and betrayal, the sun never truly rose on the Kraylan world. Instead, the sky shifted in color, pale silver in the morning, soft violet at midday, and deep navy at night. There was no warmth from their sun, only light filtered through a thick living atmosphere. To most humans, it would feel cold and lifeless. But to Jace Harrow, it had become a strange kind of normal. He was no longer a prisoner. Not officially, yet he felt more watched than ever. He had been bonded to the queen, trusted in council and feared by the nobles. But now he felt the palace walls pressing in tighter. Something was changing. There was tension in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. The guards stood stiffer. The halls were quieter. Even Zarentha seemed more distant, her words measured, her eyes shadowed. Then came the message, delivered in secret by a servant girl with trembling hands. It was carved into a small piece of folded metal. Old Kraylan script, used only by rebels. "If you want to live, come to the hollow mirror. Midnight. Alone." Jace didn't hesitate. He slipped away under a false pretense. Study in the archives, a task no one bothered to follow. Beneath the palace was a cavern of ancient rooms, untouched by the crown. There, behind a half-broken statue, stood the hollow mirror, a stone slab used in ritual reflection, now cracked down the center. A voice came from the shadows. "You don't belong here." A woman stepped forward, tall, armored, and armed. Her skin was patterned like stone, eyes like obsidian fire. She didn't bow. "Who are you?" Jace asked. "I'm Commander Sharon," she said. "Former general, exiled for refusing the Queen's command to bomb a neutral colony." Jace didn't flinch. "What do you want from me?" "To end her rule. And you're the key." Jace expected hatred in her voice. Instead, he heard resolve. Controlled fury. Rebellion born not from chaos, but purpose. Sharon explained everything. Zarentha's rule was not as stable as it appeared. Though feared by many, she had made enemies inside her own court. Nobles who saw her decision to spare Earth as weakness. Scientists who believed binding their queen to a human was blasphemy, and military leaders who had waited too long for a war they craved. "They won't follow her into peace," Sharon said. "But they might follow you. If you turn on her now, we can take control, share power, rewrite both our futures." Jace didn't answer. His mind raced. He had seen Zarentha's strength and her cruelty, but also her sadness, her sacrifice. She had never once asked him to love her, only to walk beside her. He left without making a promise, but the crack had already formed. Back in the palace, Zarentha waited. She had sensed something. Perhaps the silver band that connected them allowed her to feel the tremble in his heart. Perhaps she simply knew him too well now. That night, she invited him to the sky chamber, a vast open room with a view of the twin moons. She stood alone at the edge, wind catching her cloak like wings. "You met them," she said. Jace didn't deny it. "They're planning a coup. I know. And you're doing nothing?" Zarentha turned to him slowly. "I'm giving them a chance to choose the right path. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm tired of blood." Jace stepped closer. "They won't stop. They see you as broken, and they see me as your disease." Her lips twitched. "Then let them come." But he saw the weight in her eyes. She wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of losing everything she had fought to change. The coup began the next evening, faster than anyone expected. During a royal banquet meant to honor Jace as ambassador to the human legacy, the ceiling erupted in fire. Cloaked, rebels dropped from above. Chaos exploded, tables overturned, weapons fired, guests screamed. Jace reacted without thinking. He grabbed the queen and shielded her body with his own, rolling them behind a broken pillar. Laser fire blasted past them. One guard fell, then another. Jace reached for a fallen weapon, something between a blade and a rifle, and fought. His instincts took over. He was no longer a consort. He was a soldier again. He fought his way through the rebels, cutting down attackers with clean, brutal precision. But then, in the smoke, he saw her, Commander Sharon, leading the charge. They locked eyes. "Don't protect her," she shouted. "You don't know what she's done." "I know enough," Jace yelled back, "and I made my choice." They clashed, metal against metal. Jace moved faster, fueled by adrenaline and rage. He disarmed her, forced her to her knees. But before he could strike, Zarentha appeared behind him. "Stop," she said. Jace lowered his weapon. Sharon stared at the queen, defiant. "You've lost their faith." Zarentha nodded. "Maybe. But I still have his." She reached for Jace's hand. Her grip was firm but trembling. "If I fall, they will hunt you," she whispered. "Then we fall together," he replied. As palace guards stormed in to finish the battle, Zarentha turned and said something in a language Jace didn't understand. The rebels were overwhelmed, but Sharon escaped, vanishing into the burning halls, a shadow waiting to rise again. When the dust settled, Jace stood beside the queen in the wreckage. He had chosen her, not because she was perfect, but because she had chosen peace in a world ruled by war, and for that, she needed someone willing to bleed beside her. The queen's sacrifice, The palace smelled of fire and ash. Though the coup had been crushed, its scars remained. Charred walls, broken pillars, shattered windows where moonlight leaked in through twisted metal frames. A quiet grief hung over the once proud corridors. It wasn't just the damage to stone or structure. It was something deeper. Something fragile. Trust. The nobles no longer spoke as loudly. Some had fled. Others remained out of fear, bowing with eyes that held nothing behind them. Loyalty couldn't be forced, Jace knew, and fear alone wouldn't save a kingdom. Zarentha hadn't left her chambers since the attack. She had not eaten, had not slept. She had not spoken a word, not to Jace, not to anyone. And then, 3 nights later, the palace priest summoned Jace with a single phrase, "It has begun." He followed the priest through a secret passage lit by ancient torches. The hallway sloped downward, deeper than any part of the palace he had seen before. Soon, the air turned thick and heavy. He felt it pressing into his lungs, warm and alive. They entered a chamber carved in the shape of a circle. In the center lay Zarentha, her body glowing faintly beneath thin ceremonial robes. Her skin looked paler, her eyes closed. Golden markings ran down her neck and arms like cracked veins filled with fire. Jace rushed to her side. "What's happening to her?" The priest answered with grim calm. "The blood bond has reached its end." Jace looked down at the silver band on his wrist. It had turned black. The priest continued. "Kraylan queens carry a sacred curse passed through bloodlines. Their power connects them to their people, but the bond is not eternal. Once broken, it devours their strength. The only way to restore her life is through a soul ritual. But it must be done by the one who carries the key." "Me," Jace whispered. The priest nodded. The human bloodline was never just an accident, it was a failsafe. Her ancestors made sure that if their blood failed, your kind would carry the answer. Jace stood in silence. The price was clear now. The ritual would take a part of him. Something, more than just energy, his essence, his core. It would drain him and in doing so give her life. It wasn't death, not exactly. But it would change him. Maybe even destroy the man he was. He sat beside her and took her hand. It was cold, but not lifeless. Her fingers twitched. "Zarentha," he said softly. "You should have told me." Her eyes opened slowly, dim like fading stars. "You wouldn't have stayed." "Maybe," he said. "But I'm here now." She gripped his hand tighter. "Don't do it if you're not certain. This choice cannot be undone." Jace truly looked. Beneath the alien form, the regal power, the quiet strength, there was a soul, desperate to fix what generations had broken. She didn't want to rule through power anymore. She wanted to live with purpose. He nodded. "I'm sure." The ritual began. The priest drew a circle around them with glowing salt that burned where it touched the floor. Ancient chants filled the room. A soft wind began to swirl inside the chamber. The ceiling pulsed with energy as if the palace itself was holding its breath. Zarentha and Jace were placed at the center, back to back, palms touching. Their bands merged, becoming one single glowing chain of light wrapped around their wrists. "Close. Your eyes," the priest said, "and open your soul." Jace obeyed. A surge of pain ripped through him, not physical, but deeper, like something inside him was unraveling. Memories flashed. His childhood, his family, his fallen comrades. He felt the weight of every battle, every sacrifice. And then he felt her. Zarentha's life pulling on his like a thread being mended. She wept in silence. Not because of pain, but because of what he was giving her. And he understood now. This was never about politics or power or peace. It was about connection. Something the Kraylan had lost over generations of conquest. Something only a human heart could give back. As the ritual neared its end, the chamber exploded with light. Jace fell backward, gasping, barely conscious. He felt his body shaking. his mind heavy with memories that weren't all his. Kraylan memories, lives, voices. They now lived inside him, tangled with his own. Zarentha opened her eyes, and for the first time, she smiled. "You did it," she whispered. Jace tried to answer but found no voice. The pain had passed, but so had something else. He wasn't the same man. He felt lighter, but also strange. Parts of his old self were gone, replaced with something ancient and alien. The priest approached and knelt. "The bond is complete. Long live the queen. Long live the bridge." Jace sat in silence, his mind still spinning. He had become something more than human, and whether he wanted it or not, he had just become part of a legacy older than any war. Legacy beyond war. Jace Harrow did not return to the surface for 7 days. His body needed rest, but it was his mind that struggled to heal. After the ritual, he had been moved to a private sanctuary carved into the mountainside behind the palace. It was a place the Kraylan queens once went to fast and meditate, before war. Now it was silent again, but not in mourning, in waiting. When Jace finally opened his eyes, he knew something had changed. Forever. His reflection in the polished stone wall looked familiar and alien at the same time. His skin still bore the wounds of past battles, but subtle changes pulsed beneath it. His veins shimmered faintly with golden light, especially near the wrist where the queen's mark now lived, etched into him like fire frozen in glass. He was stronger, not in muscle but in essence. His senses were sharper. He could hear voices from rooms away, feel the presence of others without seeing them. Even the air spoke differently to him now, and his dreams. They were filled with stars. Memories, not his own, drifted into his thoughts. Ancient Kraylan queens, forgotten wars, songs sung in the old tongue by children long turned to dust. He understood things he never should have, and with that understanding came a weight. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a symbol. On the 8th day, the palace opened its gates not for war, but for peace. Zarentha stood beside Jace, wearing the crown of starlight once more. Her skin had regained its radiant hue, and though her expression was calm, her eyes searched the crowd like someone who had finally seen the sun after years of darkness. She no longer stood apart from her people. She stood with them. The nobles had no choice but to bow. In the presence of a reborn queen and her bonded human consort, rebellion melted into silence. They had seen the power of what the ritual had created. They had seen death come close and be turned away. Some still hated it, but all respected it now. Zarentha raised her hand. Her voice rang out not as a threat but as a promise. "This age of conquest is over. Today we begin again. Not as rulers and ruled, but as something new. We choose peace." The crowd stood frozen for a long breath. Then someone clapped, then another, and then hundreds of Kraylan voices filled the air, cheers that echoed through the spires, past the domes, and out into the cold sky. And Jace? He said nothing. But his presence spoke louder than words. Later that night, as he and Zarentha walked through the crystal gardens once more, she asked the question he knew was coming. "Will you go back?" He looked up at the stars. One of them was Earth, far away now, and yet always close. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I don't even know if I belong there anymore." Zarentha didn't press. She knew that pain, the ache of being too much for one world, too different for another. "You've become something rare," she said. "You're not just human and not just Kraylan." "Then what am I?" she smiled. The first bridge. That name stayed with him. When Earth's ambassadorship arrived weeks later, the humans expected to find Jace broken or enslaved. Instead, they found him dressed in ceremonial black and gold, standing beside a queen who had once been their most feared enemy. The reports that followed would shock the galaxy, but no one could deny the truth. Jace Harrow had ended a war without firing a final shot. Not because he was stronger, but because he chose to give something no weapon could. Trust, sacrifice, and a chance at something bigger than revenge. He gave them hope. Years passed. Jace never returned to military service. Instead, he helped build the first human Kraylan alliance. He traveled between stars, spoke at councils, walked across once bloody borders now filled with gardens. And when he grew older, people began to call him something else, the Soulborn, because he had given his soul to save 2 empires, and in doing so created a future no one had dared to dream of.